Hello everybody and welcome to the Import-Export Hub channel. Boring Bogdan here. I hope that you are all doing great. And guys, without prolonging too much this intro, in this video I will cover the imports and exports for mango, which is also known as the king of the fruits. We'll see together the largest exporters and importers, their trading partners of course, and towards the end of the video I will cover some stats coming from FAOSTAT relative to the largest mango producers in terms of harvested area. And last but not least, the duties, or lack of them rather, for importing mango into the European Union. So these guys would be the table of contents if you want, but before we get into the boring Excel sheets, here some interesting facts about mangoes. Well, it seems that mangoes originated in India some 4,000 years ago and are considered a sacred fruit there. And with the spread of Buddhism across Southeast Asia, mangoes spread also. Another interesting fact dating back some 10 centuries ago is related to the fact that the Persians carried mangoes across Western Asia and planted seeds in East Africa, while Portuguese explorers introduced mangoes to Brazil in the 16th century, spreading afterwards throughout the Americas. And lastly, guys, in terms of production, Asia alone grows 70% of all the mangoes in the world. And now that I've opened your appetite for mangoes, let's dive into the numbers here. And as usual, I will start with the largest exporters in the world. Unfortunately, here I don't have the exact HS code. So we have guavas, mangosteens, and mangoes all under the same subheading. But I think it's safe to say that mangoes alone account for 85% of all the values here. So relative to the largest exporters, guys, Thailand is the first one for 2021 with some $667 million. It was followed by Mexico with $506 million, and the third largest exporter was the Netherlands with some $442 million. But this is mostly because Netherlands has a big trading function and not because the Netherlands is growing mango. In this top 10 list, we have other big producers like Peru, Brazil, India, or Indonesia, all with really impressive figures in terms of exports. In what concerns the trend line, we see that from 2019, the exports are relatively flat. This is a mature market after all, but we do see some year-on-year changes in this top 10 list. China and Indonesia, for example, exported less in 2021, 14.4% less for China and almost 12% for Indonesia. While on the other side of the spectrum, we see strong numbers coming from Thailand, Mexico, and Pakistan, all with figures above the $50 million mark. Now, moving to the largest importers, guy, we see here that only the Netherlands and Spain are the only ones who perform an export gateway function as well. Otherwise, we see countries who either import because of insufficient local production or it doesn't exist. And here the United States are the main importer for 2021 with some $818 million. China followed closely with some $790 million. While the Netherlands sat on the third place with almost $362 million. Other big importers in this top 10 list are Germany, United Kingdom, Spain, or I don't know, the Russian Federation, all with figures above the $100 million mark. Relative to the cumulative value of imports, these top 10 countries make up for some 73% of the global demand, all more or less on an upward trend, except maybe Germany, France, and the United Kingdom in 2019 and 2020. Relative to the year-on-year changes, the only country with a negative change was the Netherlands, almost 1% contraction. But this is insignificant if you ask me, as they are quite disciplined, the Dutch, in this respect. And I have to give it to them. They are very, very good at trading, but this is another story. As for the largest absolute positive changes in 2021 here, the United States imported with some $99.5 million more than in the previous year. But we see strong figures coming also from the United Kingdom with close to $67 million more imports. And now, guys, with both the overall exports and imports covered, let's dive into the top 3 ones for each flow, of course, in order to see their trading partners. And I've took the responsibility to select the 4th largest exporters, so Peru instead of the Netherlands, simply because the Netherlands serves only as an export gateway and it's not a grower. So without upsetting anyone, let's see Thailand's main partners, almost all top 10, more or less regional. And China here dwarfs the rest of them with some $509.5 million, while Malaysia, the Thailand's second largest partner, has less than a tenth of China's figure. In this top 10 list, we have other important trading partners, and I will mention just those that are more distant, like, I don't know, the United States, Norway, or Ukraine. Relative to the year-on-year changes, we have an absolute positive change of $88 million, thanks to the strong numbers coming from China and Malaysia, who dampened the negative values coming from Vietnam. Moving now, guys, to the second largest exporter in the world, so Mexico. We see that almost all the eggs are in one basket, more or less, the United States in this case. And it makes sense, really. There is not a big risk involved here, as in the United States, mango is considered an exotic fruit, if I'm not mistaken. So the demand, in theory, should be more or less constant. Anyways, coming back to the numbers here, the exports towards the United States amounted to $447 million, those towards Canada to $51 million, while those towards Japan, so Mexico's third largest partner, amounted to just $4.6 million. And in what concerns the year-on-year change, we have here 12.6% in relative terms, which translates into $56.7 million in absolute ones, thanks mainly to the big and constant demand coming from the United States. And guys, the only thing that would concern me if I was a Mexican grower is to overestimate the future demand and planting more trees than usual. But I'm pretty sure that the cartels in Mexico know how to manage this thing, as they know how to manage the avocado supply as well. Anyways, moving to the third largest exporter and grower at the same time. I've told you earlier that I've decided to ignore the Netherlands, and we have here Peru, which in 2021 exported some $315.6 million worth of mangoes, with the Netherlands, the United States, and South Korea as the main partners, which were followed by other important ones like, I don't know, the United Kingdom, Canada, or Belgium. Overall, Peru's exports expanded with some 12.5% in relative terms and almost $36 million in absolute ones, thanks to the strong figures coming from both the United States and South Korea, both with figures above the $10 million mark. In this top 10 list, we have just one partner who had a contraction, the United States, the Russian Federation, who imported with some $815,000 less in 2021 than in 2020. And for me, it would be very interesting to see how 2022 would look like in relation with the Russian Federation. And now, guys, moving to the top three importers, I will start with the United States, which is the largest one, some $818 million worth of imports for 2021, almost 14% more than in 2020. And here we see that Mexico, Peru, and Brazil are the biggest trading partners, making up for more or less 50% of all US imports for mangoes, of course. But we have other important ones like, I don't know, Haiti, the Dominican Republic, or Vietnam, to name just a few from this top 10 list. But as you can see here, the figures are much, much lower than those coming from Mexico or Peru. Relative to the year-on-year changes, 2021 saw some 14% increase in relative terms, almost $100 million in absolute ones, with all the top 10 trading partners having positive numbers. And here, the 14% increase, I think it is positively correlated with COVID. That is, being rich in vitamin C, people consumed more and more mangoes. And I won't say that this is a scientific method, but my gut is telling that the increase in demand is correlated, positively correlated with this variable. Moving now, guys, to the second biggest importer in the world, so the mighty China. Here we see that from 2018, the imports really took off, bringing the total value for 2021 around $790 million, with Thailand here, Indonesia, and Taiwan as the main partners. Now, in what concerns the year-on-year changes, we have almost a 5% increase in relative terms and almost $35 million in absolute ones, with Thailand having the biggest absolute change of almost $110 million. But on the other side of the table, we have big negative figures coming from Taiwan and Vietnam. And here, guys, I would venture a speculation again. Relative to Taiwan, I think it's all about politics and retaliation, as Taiwan is or was an export gateway towards mainland China. While in what concerns Vietnam, for me, it is really, really strange to see those $48.7 million worth of imports in 2020, the figure highlighted here in yellow, while before 2020 there were insignificant figures. So most probably, both politics and business opportunities are the culprits in the case of Vietnam. But again, this is pure speculation coming from my side. Anyways, moving now to the third largest importer, the Netherlands. And here we see where the Dutch contours are, and basically Brazil is the largest partner with some $126 million. It was followed by Peru with almost $119 million, while Cote d'Ivoire sits on the third spot with almost $17 million. Overall, the imports shrunk with some 1%, $3 million in absolute terms, with Peru and France having big absolute negative values. And guys, before I move on, I just want to underline the fact that personally I consider Dutch business people very, very disciplined, organized, and capable of scaling up niche products. And last but not least, they really, really know how to fill the product if you want and its market potential. I don't know what kind of business school they have there, but this relatively small country is doing very, very well in terms of international trading, or I don't know, adding value locally. And this is not happening from, I don't know, 50 or 100 years ago, but from the late Middle Ages, when it took the leading role of a trading center from Antwerp. But anyways, guys, this is another story. So let's get back to the table here and move on to my next sheet, in which I've plotted the United States top 10 import gateways, with Laredo and Nogales the most important ones. Thanks, of course, to the proximity of Mexico, US biggest trading partner when it comes to mangoes. Another thing that I wanted to cover here is the FAOSTAT data in terms of harvested areas expressed in hectares, with a nice trend line covering almost 10 years. And there are only two things that I want to highlight here. The first one is India's huge harvested area, which in this more or less decade, let's say, it increased with 200,000 hectares. While on the other hand, and this brings me to my second thing that I wanted to highlight, Thailand, the second largest country in 2012 in terms of harvested area, managed to decrease its planted area with some 887,000 hectares, again in just 10 years. And my guess is that the tourism sector played a very important role here, as land was needed and reclaimed in order to build the resorts. Anyways, guys, moving now to the last sheet from this Excel file for those of you wanting to import into the European Union, or I don't know, exporting towards the European Union. We have the tariff, which fortunately is at 0%, so no third country duty, as you can see here, in what concerns Thailand, Mexico, or Peru. And guys, with this being said, that's all for today. Thanks for watching. I hope you've liked it. Don't forget to hit whatever button you like above or below this video. And as usual, until next time, keep your business safe. Thanks.